So actually, so there's two directions to go from here. So one is how the structures change because we have this somewhat exceptional medium, and then two, I think there's a quote from your buddy Doc Searles that said, "We are the authors of each other," meaning that the web is allowing us to collaborate in a way that seemingly hasn't been done before, in a scale that seemingly hasn't been done before. And if the theme is change networks, um, the biggest thing that I've seen, I think you might agree with in the change of networks, is that it's much easier now for us to write with each other, on our Facebook walls, on our Twitter streams, on our blogs, on the comments that we make on things that others have put down. Somewhat unprecedented, no?
Yes, and I would just be careful of the word "right." Doc is a writer. I'm a writer.
Hmm.
You're a writer. To us, it looks, but right now we're on Skype on video, so
It's true.
I would just take that. I would take Doc's wonderful phrase and, as I'm sure he intends, expand it beyond actually writing.
Sure, exactly.
So, and it's not simply writing together; it's also working together,
Hmm.
building things together, and our ability to do that in this environment. I agree. I think that's actually a third exception. Our ability to do large, sprawling projects that scale beyond anything we could ever have
Right.
imagined is spectacular. Britannica looked like a huge work 5 years ago.
Yes.
It's generational. If to revise a thing, it takes basically a generation of really smart people working really, really hard. Britannica, in terms of size, and compared to the 65,000 entries in the print version of Britannica versus the over 2 million now, well over 2 million in the English language
English
version of
only, yeah.
Wikipedia. Yeah, our Britannica looked large because our idea of scale was constrained by what we could accomplish in the physical world. And what we can do now in this open end-to-end hyperlinked environment gives rise to this third exception, which is our ability to build stuff on a scale not imaginable before, and also of a different type, by the way, than what was imaginable before.
And then, so there's the scale of projects like a Wikipedia that people can collaborate on, but then there's also the change networks. And if we think about the themes of Supernova and the idea of how we change each other, these constant updates of each other's information. Some might say annoying or oversharing, but there's still an awareness and a connection to people. Actually, my wife put forth the proposition that our children would never have to worry about having high school reunions because they would never be disconnected from each other when they got
So
out of high
absolutely,
school.
yeah,
And
absolutely. And
and
the
that
fact that you
changes
carry
a little bit of the world.
absolutely the fact that you carry your list of your contact, your buddy list with you forever, it's easier to keep people on it than to take them off.
Right.
Is a fundamentally different than when I grew up. It's a huge difference in the nature of friendship. And our vocabulary is lacking right now. We're stretching old terms, what we always do.
Right.
Even the use of the term buddy is dated, right?
I think I
But
read
our,
something about the Eskimos' mystical 27 words for snow, trying to map that to friends. There's not really a good mapping, you know.
but know what? We have whatever that mythical number is. I think I used to hear it was 35 words for snow.
Right.
Whatever it is, it's made up apparently. But
Yeah.
I once tried mapping it to our culture's terms for garbage, and we have so many different words for garbage. We have way more than the Eskimos supposedly have words for snow. Anyway, our vocabulary will catch up. I'm not worried about that at all.
Right.
But the fact that it has to catch up indicates just how what sort of change this is. I mean, these are basic words like friend.
Right.
How often do we have to come up with a new term for a new type of friend in our culture? It's just not all that often.
Mm. It is somewhat of a seminal change. Stepping back, if we talk about government and policy aspects of what we were talking about before, which is that if the web is exceptional, if the web is transformative, more transformative than previous mediums, and if, as you said, the ability to stop thinking of things as books or fixed tomes, but more as fluid resources comes into play, what are the implications for public policy, for the way we structure government going forward in a world where you can create stuff whole cloth out of nothing, like a Wikipedia, and create a resource?
Well, you want public policy always to lag. I think. Now, the always is probably wrong. I'm trying to think of exceptions to that, but let's say usually. You want the experimentation to be done where it can do less harm, where,
Sure.
And figure out what's going to work across multiple classes and education levels and interest and all that, because citizenry is pretty broad. But government itself is a reflection of a print culture, of a book culture, the sense of authority, who gets to speak, and even the one-to-many, the separation of us from our government has been inevitable, I think, given that, initially you were 300 years ago, how many years ago? 200 and whatever years ago, you were sending letters to your representative by horseback, and,
Sure.
the lag time was rather slow. So our government has always been based around a notion of authority that assumes a separation, a one-to-many relationship, and a separation from the constituents. And we are discovering, first of all, we've already discovered that because of the third point of exceptionalism, we seem to be codifying this now, namely our ability to work together in new collaborative ways, that the citizenry can, regardless of the government, we can get together and we can do a whole bunch of things on our own that maybe we used to think we needed government for. The government lags, that's proper, starts to engage in this, and we get things like data.gov and recovery.gov, which are efforts by the Obama administration to greatly increase the transparency of government.
Sure.
And a lot of people who care about transparency, I mean, that's their issue, they're disappointed by those two sites because they're sort of just okay. They're not doing everything they will do or can do or should do.
Sure.
The data's a little paltry. It's, these sites are just at the beginning. And so there's been some grousing, to which I want to say, shut up, in a very warm and friendly way.
Yes.
These are my friends who are saying this.
Right.
No, I understand that. That's right. And we do need to prod these sites into...
Exactly.
Nevertheless, oh my God, this is now a government. For me, this goes way beyond, the importance of this goes way beyond the fact that now we have more data that we can do things with, that we can fact check, keep the government honest, all of which is really important. And things that, for example, the Sun Life Foundation are doing, I think are just fantastic. What the citizenry can do is just amazing. But I think the importance of those sites and what they stand for is bigger than that. And what makes me so happy about them is that it's a recognition by the government that this stuff is ours, that this data, of course they're going to put it
This is
up.
equivalent to the beginnings of the publishing of the Congressional Register and the Federal Register as well. Congressional, I forget, I used to work there, but the Congressional, the summary of what's going on. I mean, this is monumental, and you can compare it to if you first saw Yahoo and it had 12,000 links and some sort of a simple hierarchy and was running out of those guys' dorms in Stanford, and you went, yeah, this is never going to be anything, right? This is the stage that we're at.
Yeah, no, exactly right. And then the comparison is a wonderful one. Do you have any idea when that was that the congressional proceedings started getting published?
I don't actually know. I was an intern for a summer. They didn't actually give that in the course when you're there. So,
but it's a very apt analysis, right? I mean, it's right on the mark, because it makes the same sort of statement. The fact that this is routine, unglamorous, they're just going to put it up there, says that the data is ours, that that facts themselves are commons,
right,
so to speak. And beyond that, that the government is ours as well. That it's a prosaic thing that does work for us, that generates information, among other things. And of course, it should be ours. And so, if through that sort of thing and everything else that the government is playing with and trying out, if the sum total of that over the course of years is that we begin once again to think that this government is actually ours. It's not apart from us. That is a monumental change, and also in many ways a return to the original vision of the founding fathers and their spouses at home.
Their ideas, exactly.